Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Our topic for today is Agile adoption. My name is Stevie Bourne and I am a certified Scrum Master as well as a certified Scrum practitioner. I have worked in a variety of roles in the IT industry. I've been a product owner, software developer. I currently work primarily as an Agile coach. I've also played roles of Scrum Master, Project Manager, and a variety of other activities within all of my software development teams. Combined, I have about 15 or more years of experience within IT, and I've been using pragmatic Agile techniques for at least 10 years on my teams, well before it even had a name called Agile. And by pragmatic, I mean that rather than follow a particular recipe with my teams, I tend to modify as I go to make it the best experience based on a variety of conditions that are unique to every team I work with. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the webinar. So the topics that we're going to cover today are readiness assessment, getting set, coaching, starting small, and then we'll finish up with a short discussion around tools. First off, readiness assessment. What do we mean by a readiness assessment? Our team comes and talks with interviews, stakeholders and team members, just about anyone that's involved in making decisions about the project. And the purpose of the readiness assessment is to understand how ready your team and your organization are for adopting an Agile approach to software delivery. It's really meant to be a series of discovering meetings. Not only do we help leadership understand short-term subtle changes that may have to take place, but we also help the team align their expectations. We identify potential training needs. We help understand the roles that are needed on an Agile team and the responsibilities within those roles. We also talk about schedules and logistics. We talk about activities that we will do as part of coaching your team to make sure that your team gets set off on a smooth start. We like to set appropriate expectations about some potential challenges that we see through our interviews. And all in all, it takes about a week or so for us to conduct these interviews and then provide the assessment results to the leadership team at the end of the assessment. A few other things that we think about and that we look into during the readiness assessment, we look at what are the motivations that have brought your team or your organization to want to change the way that they're operating. Why do they want to adopt Agile practices? We look at resource allocation. We look at the level of support for change all across the organization, not just within the team, but all the way up to the CEO and CTO level. Finally, we take a look at your geographical location of your team members. Are you all located in one office? Are you spread across numerous offices? How many time zones differentiate between the team members? And what are the roles that those team members will play on the individual project or projects? One thing to note about a readiness assessment, it can be done at a particular project team level, or it can be done a little bit higher within the organization to understand what is the level of readiness for the organization as a whole to adopt an Agile approach to software delivery, as opposed to just a particular team wanting to adopt Agile practices. So that's the information about a readiness assessment. So getting set. Once we've decided that this is a good fit and your organization, your team, everyone is ready to go and we're going to get going on this Agile journey together, some of the first steps, we conduct a 2 to 3 day workshop. And I say 2 to 3 days because much of it depends on the size of your team and the schedule that you have set up, as well as the amount of pre-work that you may or may not be able to do prior to the workshop. Now, this workshop, what does it entail? It includes Agile training because we want to ensure that everyone on the team has the same understanding of the terminology and the practices that we will be using going forward on this Agile team. We also create a team charter and do some release planning, as well as many other activities that are needed to get the team going off on a good start. Now, one critical part of having a successful workshop at the beginning of starting any Agile team is all of the team members need to be together face to face. Now, that means that if you have team members in a variety of offices, maybe in a variety of different places around the world, that you will need to invest in travel dollars in order to bring them all together into one location. Oftentimes, I've been asked, well, can't we just do this using some video conferencing equipment? We've got some great things that we use. I speak from experience in that I have tried to do this type of a workshop using video conferencing equipment, some of the latest video conferencing equipment that is available, and it did not provide the same type of team experience. Yes, video conferencing is great, and I am not down on those tools. However, one of the purposes of bringing the team together is to do team building. Because when you work on an Agile team, the team component is critical. You want your team to learn how to trust each other in order to have a high degree of collaboration. Without that, you will only be moderately successful. Because one of the critical parts of Agile is collaboration. That's one of the 4 main elements of the Agile Manifesto, which are the principles that all of these practices are built upon. Face-to-face participation is absolutely required for this 2 to 3 day workshop. A few things to note about the workshop. These can be scheduled as consecutive days, or if it works better for your organization, it can be split up. For instance, I've done it where I do a Monday and a Tuesday morning, and then we reconvene and we do Wednesday afternoon and all day Thursday. So it depends on what works best for your schedule, and we have a lot of flexibility in how we work with our clients. Coaching. Once the team has gone through their workshop, now it is time to get in and play the game. What does that involve? It's easy to think about your team members, the developers, the business analysts, the QA, the project managers, other managers, your architect. Those people, it all makes sense that you have them on your team. However, in order to have a successful Agile team, especially early on when you are new to an Agile approach, it's absolutely critical that you hire a full-time coach. That doesn't mean that the coach needs to stay there for months and months and months. No, in fact, the coach needs to be full-time to start so that they can become embedded in the team and really make sure that the team gets off to a good start. But then after a few sprints, maybe 4 or 5 sprints, then the coach starts to dial it back because the team becomes more self-managed. They don't need to have a coach there quite as much. The team understands what their rhythm is. They've developed a healthy cadence. They know how they work best together. So why do you need a coach anyway? You know, how does a coach differ from a scrum master? You'll notice my very last bullet point. Coaches do not equal scrum masters. One of the differences are that scrum masters are very, very good at leading the mechanics. And it's with those mechanics that the team learns how to function well. However, there's more to being a successful team than just the mechanics. A team needs to also know how to make healthy choices, how to be able to instill best practices such as test-driven development, if that's something that your team chooses to use. The coach also helps understand team dynamics. A coach is very much looking for the way that the team interacts with one another. A coach is there to give the team different choices to make. So for instance, the team may say, well, we want to do things a little bit differently. Our retrospectives aren't working very well. So instead of just stopping the retrospectives, a coach will say, all right, well, let's try something different this time. Or maybe a coach will begin to mentor a new person on the team to begin taking over some of these responsibilities. But in essence, a coach is there to help the team learn how to implement the Agile principles. Because at the end of the day, it's much, much more about the principles than it is the practices. Teams can implement the principles in a variety of ways. There's many, many ways to create short feedback loops within your team, and experienced coaches can explain and show the team how to implement those. A developer coach is sometimes needed as well. And a developer coach is somebody who sits side by side with your developers. This person is also full-time, and they are embedded with the development team in order to teach by example. You treat this person just like any other developer. However, their primary role is to teach the team how to implement extreme programming practices. So for instance, your team may choose to do test-driven development or paired programming or continuous integration. These are all areas that a solid developer coach has extensive experience in. They know a variety of tools available, both open source as well as commercial tools. They understand what will work best given your organizational constraints. And so a developer coach is often needed if you want to take the extreme programming practices seriously. Although a team coach, an Agile coach, can tell a team about those, they typically are not the ones that sit side by side with the developers to show them how to write unit tests, for instance. A coach may be able to give guidance on what continuous integration means. However, a developer coach rolls up their sleeves, gets dirty, and helps the team make continuous integration a reality for them. Starting small. There's a few different ways for an organization to adopt Agile principles and practices. They can do a big bang approach where they say, we're going to be all Agile. However, my experience and the experience of many other coaches that I work with says that starting small tends to be a more successful approach. And what I mean by that is to choose 1 or 2 pilot projects. Invest everything you can in those pilot projects in order to make them as successful as possible. Help them remove organizational barriers. In fact, use them as opportunities to drive organizational change. For instance, if you have a very, very, very slow release process, and you know that that needs to change in order for your company to do better in the marketplace and respond more quickly to market needs, then use one of these pilot projects as an opportunity to make changes in your release process and to make it more efficient, to make it more streamlined, and to speed it up. Why not? What a great excuse to bring about healthy organizational change. The other thing is, once you've done these pilot projects, you'll really need to take some honest look at how did they go? What went well, but more importantly, what didn't go well? You don't want to just look at things through rose-colored glasses and say, oh, they were fantastic. Agile is terrific. We love it. No, very seldom is that reality. As much as I love Agile and as much as I love coaching teams, that doesn't happen very often. So there are always lessons to be learned from your pilot projects. So don't lose that opportunity. Don't just execute some pilot projects and say, yeah, we're great, we're going to add on more. No, use those pilot projects as you would any other pilot project within your company. Finally, those pilot projects will give you incredibly helpful information on what other organizational changes need to happen in order for your organization to have a full Agile transformation. And you may determine after doing these pilot projects that your organization is not ready for a full Agile adoption. And that's okay. You can still improve things by having your teams work in an Agile fashion, or maybe just having a handful of your teams work in an Agile fashion. You don't have to be an all or nothing shop. I have worked in many organizations where they have a healthy balance between Agile teams and waterfall teams. And even some of the waterfall teams are learning how to have smaller cycles in their waterfall process in order to better mesh with the Agile teams. And so it doesn't have to be a full-blown Agile transformation. Rather, take it one project at a time, fully invest in those early projects to make them as successful as possible, and then be sure to review and apply the lessons that you learn along the way. Tools. There are a lot of tools out there to choose from. There are numerous open source and commercial tools, and many of them are very good. And I'm not here to tell you any particular tool that you have to use. Yes, I have my favorites, but that's not the point of today's presentation. Rather, I want to explain what you want to look for in the different tools. You'll notice my pictures are pictures of kitchen tools. On the left, I have some measuring spoons, and then I have measuring cups, and finally there's a container with a whisk and a spatula and a variety of other things in there. The point is, you use different tools to meet different needs. And it's the same way with your software tools that you use on Agile teams. For instance, collaboration. You most likely will need some tool to help improve your collaboration. Now, I say that with caution because it's very easy to just become tool focused and to lose sight of the real need, which is to have a highly collaborative team. For instance, it's very easy to start using a chat service and lose sight of the fact that you could get up and walk over to your team member's cube and just ask them a question. In fact, if you are sitting in all one spot, if you have the luxury of being co-located, which is phenomenal, and I highly recommend that whenever possible. If you have that luxury, then I would say use the fewest tools possible because you want to have a high degree of communication and collaboration amongst your team members. However, many places that's not reality. We live in a globally distributed world, and I understand that almost all of my clients are spread throughout the world. And I have worked in globally distributed Agile teams for the last 6 or 7 years, so I understand the challenges that presents. In fact, some people will say to me, well, we can't be Agile because we can't all sit in one spot. My response is you can be Agile. You can still benefit from Agile practices. You can still live out the Agile principles. It will just look differently, and it may take a little bit more effort. So for instance, when you are a geographically distributed team, you need to have good video capabilities. And I want to emphasize good video. There are a lot of options out there, but you need to invest in something that really will make those distributed team members feel like they're part of the team, because it's essential that the whole team feels like they're working together, not just the people in a particular office. The other reason that video is so critical is that it keeps people engaged in the conversations. I'm sure many of us have been on a conference call and it's just on the phone and we put the phone on mute and we multitask. I'm guilty of that. The point is, if you saw me on video and I saw you on video, we would both be more engaged in this conversation. And it's like that with our teams as well. In fact, use Agile as an excuse to invest in video technology. There's some cool stuff out there, and this could be a great reason for your company to invest in that. Other activities that you'll want to make sure that you use, or other tools, you'll want to make sure that if you have a geographically distributed team, that you have some sort of electronic Agile planning and tracking tool. There are many out there to choose from, such as version 1, Rally, Mingle. There's some open source ones such as Trello. All of these tools are very similar, and you need to assess which one will meet the needs of your particular team. But you will need some sort of a tool if you're geographically distributed, because you can't live with a whiteboard and post-it notes when you have team members that can't be in all the same location. The other thing to keep in mind for geographically distributed teams is that you want to have an instant chat software for real-time communication compared to just email. There's a variety of things out there. Again, some places use Google Chat, Skype. Sometimes people have used Link within the Microsoft Office suite. And there are many, many others for you to take a look at. But that instant chat feedback is fantastic because you can just ping someone and say, "Hey, Susie, are you there? I have a quick question." And that's much better than sending Susie an email and just wondering if she got it or if she's even read it yet. Another thing that you'll want to look for is some sort of electronic whiteboard in order to improve your whiteboard collaborative discussions. There's nothing worse than being on the other end of a video conference and the whole team is talking about some stuff on a whiteboard and all you see is a beautiful white glare and you can't understand anything that they've drawn, and yet you can follow it verbally, but seeing what's on the whiteboard is so much more beneficial. So think about electronic whiteboards as well. Overall, the tools that you invest in need to be used to improve your communication and your collaboration. They need to shorten feedback loops about all of the different kinds of information. The tools also need to be helpful information radiators so that your team can know how they're doing at any point in time. And people outside of your team can understand how your team is progressing at any given point in time. All of these tools help your team easily gather metrics. And it's with these metrics that teams and leadership can make data-driven decisions, which are much more confident and powerful than if we just make decisions about our projects based on our gut. All in all, tools are a great thing, but don't let tools replace your collaboration and communication. Make sure that the tools that you choose enhance that on your team. With that, I will open it up for questions. I have here as this last slide my contact information. Feel free to email me at any point. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to answer questions now or in the future. It can be anything Agile related. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to the next time we meet.